The flight touched down at 2:10 p.m., wheels screeching against the runway at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. "Can someone pick me up?" I typed into the family group chat, thumb hovering over send for a moment before hitting it. I was 3 weeks post-surgery, the kind doctors call life-saving, with a 50-50 smile. My right hand trembled as I gripped the phone, maybe from medication, maybe from the quiet dread that had followed me home from the hospital. Around me, families hugged and laughed. I sat alone with my carry-on and a folded discharge paper that said "Avoid emotional stress." When my phone buzzed, it wasn't comfort that came through. "We're swamped today. Just call a taxi or Uber." Texted Lana, my daughter-in-law, the same woman whose kids I'd watched every summer while she climbed ranks at her tech firm. Then came my son's reply, "Evan, Mom, you always spring things on us last minute." Evan, my only son, the man I'd raised alone after his father's accident. I stared at his message until the letters blurred. Something inside me fractured, not the mended heart, but the part that still believed love automatically meant care. 25 days earlier, I'd flown to Cleveland for a high-risk cardiac procedure. I told them it was routine, not wanting to cause worry. I'd signed waivers alone, drifted through anesthesia, and woken to the sharp white light of survival. Now, the people I'd nearly died for couldn't spare an hour to pick me up. I typed back, "Okay," that tiny, falsely cheerful word that hides pain in plain sight, and made a different kind of plan. At 68, I'd spent my life giving widowhood at 50, part-time work until retirement, babysitting, cooking, loaning money just until next month. I'd paid for their college deposits and their first car. My reward was an emoji and a rideshare link. My hand steadied as I opened another contact, Dr. Malcolm Reyes, the surgeon who'd overseen my recovery. He'd called me the most stubborn woman he'd met in 20 years of medicine, which I'd taken as a compliment. "Dr. Reyes, I know you're in Geneva for a conference, but I just landed back in Seattle, having some trouble with transportation. Don't worry, I'll manage." I hit send. Didn't expect an answer. The phone rang instantly. "Nora?" His voice was warm, steady, unmistakable. "Where are you exactly?" "Concourse D," I said, blinking in disbelief. "Stay there," he replied. "I just landed too." "You're here? In Seattle?" I could barely hide the disbelief in my voice. "Indeed I am," Malcolm said, his tone light, amused. "My son's engagement party wrapped up yesterday in Zurich. I took the overnight flight home. My driver's on his way to the terminal now. We can easily pick you up. Do you have checked bags?" "Just this carry-on," I said, glancing at the small suitcase that held 3 weeks of hospital living. "Nora," he interrupted gently, "you've just come through major heart surgery. The last thing you need is to wrestle with rideshare apps or strangers. Text me your exact location. Samuel and I will be there in 15 minutes. When the call ended, I sat motionless, the world around me blurring into the soft roar of baggage carts and PA announcements. Dr. Malcolm Reyes, the man whose research shaped modern cardiac medicine, who lectured at conferences I'd only ever read about, was coming to pick me up like an old friend. I caught my reflection in a vending machine panel. Pale skin, gray hair limp against my cheeks, eyes ringed with exhaustion. The hospital had stripped me of vanity, but not of dignity. I applied a touch of rose lipstick anyway, a small, defiant act of self-respect. True to his word, 15 minutes later, a sleek black Tesla pulled up to the curb. A dignified older driver stepped out and approached. "Mrs. Whitfield? I'm Samuel. Dr. Reyes asked me to assist you." Before I could reply, Malcolm appeared tall, silver-haired, dressed in a navy sweater and tailored slacks, his calm authority softened by genuine warmth. "Nora," he said, taking my hand in both of his. "I've been thinking about you since the operation. I'm glad to see you up and moving." His sincerity nearly undid me. I blinked back tears, forcing a shaky smile. "It went as well as it could. I'm still here, aren't I?" He nodded slightly. "Yes, and I'm very glad of that." As Samuel lifted my suitcase, Malcolm offered his arm. I hesitated, but he smiled gently. "You could never be a burden," he murmured. The Tesla glided onto the highway, Seattle's gray skyline fading behind us. And for the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar, not loneliness, not gratitude, but the quiet, impossible beginning of being seen. About your family not meeting you, Malcolm began gently. I smoothed an invisible crease on my skirt, trying to buy time. How could I answer without sounding bitter? They're busy people, I said at last. Evan's a senior partner at Crandall and Myers now. Lana's running a major campaign for her company. Malcolm studied me with that quiet focus I remembered from the exam room, the kind that caught not only what you said but what you tried to hide. I see, he said slowly. And neither could spare 30 minutes to pick up their mother after heart surgery. Put so plainly, it landed like a blade. It was last minute, I said quickly. I didn't give them much notice about my flight. Because you didn't know when you'd be discharged, he replied smoothly. That's how hospitals work. Surely they understood that. I turned to the window, watching the drizzle streak against the glass. I didn't exactly tell them it was cardiac surgery, I admitted. I said it was a minor procedure. Nora, he said just my name, but with gentle reproach. The valve reconstruction you underwent is anything but minor. Why downplay it? Why? Indeed. The truth pressed like weight on my chest, because I'd spent years not wanting to be a burden. Years making myself small so their lives could stay large. They have their own concerns, I murmured. Lana's working on a big merger. Evan's in court constantly. The grandkids have their lessons. He shook his head slightly. Your condition was life-threatening. That's not a disruption, that's a family emergency. The bluntness startled me. For years, I'd built careful excuses for their indifference, each more fragile than the last. May I ask you something personal? He said. Of course. Do they know who I am? I hesitated. I mentioned you during the consultation. Lana seemed interested. She works in pharmaceutical PR. I think your endorsement carries weight in her field. Ah, he said quietly. Did she ask for an introduction? She hinted. I admitted. But I'd never use our friendship that way. He smiled warm, disarming. Friendship. I like that word. The sincerity in his tone reached some quiet corner of me that hadn't felt alive in years. I like it too, I said softly. For the rest of the drive, we spoke of surgery and recovery, but beneath the technical talk lay something else: connection, rare and steady. As the car turned onto my street, the sight of my dark, silent house suddenly felt heavier than ever. Would you like Samuel and me to help you get settled? Malcolm asked, as if sensing my hesitation at the door. You shouldn't be lifting anything yet, and there may be things you need from the store. That's kind, but I couldn't impose further. It's not an imposition, he said firmly. In fact, I insist. Doctor's orders. The tone made me smile despite myself. Well, if it's doctor's orders. Samuel pulled into my driveway and came around to open my door, offering his arm with quiet formality. Malcolm followed, carrying my suitcase as though it weighed nothing. Together they escorted me inside, like a royal procession entering a very humble palace. The house looked smaller somehow after the hospital, cozy but tired. My late husband's woodworking lined the walls, every frame a memory. I worried what someone like Malcolm might see. Thrift, simplicity, the modest life of a woman who'd given more than she'd kept. But his gaze held no judgment. He paused at a watercolor of the Olympic Peninsula. You painted this? No, my husband did, I said softly. Beautiful, he murmured. You can see the love in every brushstroke. While Samuel left for the grocery store, armed with a list Malcolm had dictated, proper recovery requires proper nutrition, Nora. No frozen dinners. The doctor moved easily through my kitchen. I hope you don't mind, he said, steeping tea with practiced ease. I find ritual comforting after surgery. My mother swore tea could mend anything except a broken heart. Watching him there, framed by the soft kitchen light, felt strangely intimate, like a moment borrowed from another life. Then my phone buzzed. Repeatedly. 48 missed calls, 32 messages, all from Evan and Lana. Something wrong? Malcolm asked, seeing my expression. I'm not sure, I said slowly, unlocking the screen. A new alert appeared. It was a photo posted by Malcolm an hour earlier, the two of us in the Tesla, his hand steadying my arm. The caption read, "Honored to assist my friend Nora Whitfield home after her remarkable recovery from cardiac surgery." The post had thousands of likes, and one comment stood out. From Lana, Dr. Reyes, this is my mother-in-law. I've been trying to reach you for months regarding the CardioSync project. I looked up. Did you know? Malcolm smiled faintly, setting down my tea. Let's just say your daughter-in-law's reputation arrived long before her message. Lana, is that really Dr. Malcolm Reyes with you? How do you know him? Evan, why aren't you answering your phone? This is urgent, Lana. Mom Whitfield, please call. We need to discuss your connection to Dr. Reyes as soon as possible. The progression was obvious from startled curiosity to outright desperation. Every message revolved around my connection to Malcolm, not my health. Not one asked how I felt after heart surgery or if I'd made it home safely. So when the doorbell rang sharp, insistent, I wasn't surprised. The reckoning had arrived sooner than expected. Evan and Lana stood on my porch, still in their work clothes, tension written across their perfectly composed faces. Mom, Evan said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. We've been trying to reach you for hours. I was resting, I replied evenly, stepping aside. Doctor's orders after cardiac surgery. Lana blinked. Cardiac surgery? You told us it was minor. Did I? I moved slowly to my armchair, adjusting the shawl around my shoulders. It was minor in the sense that I survived it. The words came sharper than I intended. Evan's brow creased as his gaze landed on the pill dispenser and discharge papers neatly arranged on the coffee table. Mom, he said quietly, what's really going on? First you hide some surgery, then you're suddenly on social media with Dr. Malcolm Reyes. I had experimental valve reconstruction in Cleveland, I said calmly. 40% survival odds. Dr. Reyes consulted on my case. Silence. Then Lana crossed her legs gracefully, adopting the posture she used in boardrooms. Why didn't you tell us it was so serious? Her tone suggested concern, but her eyes flicked toward my phone, toward what my friendship might mean for her. Would it have mattered? I asked softly. You were too busy to pick me up from the airport. Would higher odds of my death have cleared your schedules? Evan looked stricken. Of course we would have come. Like you did during my knee surgery? I asked. 15 minutes between meetings? Or when I had pneumonia, a bouquet instead of a visit? Lana jumped in quickly, her voice sweet and careful. Dr. Reyes seems very devoted. You never said you were such close friends. Perhaps he noticed I needed help, I said, when my own family didn't. The silence that followed was long and heavy. Evan shifted, shame darkening his face. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered. I nodded once. So am I. So, Lana began, unable to keep the edge of impatience from her voice. How well do you actually know Dr. Reyes? His endorsement could change everything for our company's new cardio tech division. I've been trying to reach him for months. There it was, the truth behind their sudden interest. Not concern, not care, but opportunity. Well enough that he chose to help me today, I said evenly. Beyond that, our relationship is private. Evan frowned. Private? What does that mean? I smiled faintly, remembering Malcolm's hand brushing mine in the car, the warmth in his eyes when he'd said goodbye. It means some relationships exist beyond professional favors. Some connections don't belong in a boardroom. Lana's composure wavered for the first time. You must realize how important this could be, Nora. For all of us. For the family. I think Dr. Reyes already understands Meridian's ambitions. I replied quietly, recalling the flicker of recognition in his expression when I'd mentioned her name. Lana's eyes narrowed. Did you tell him I'd been trying to contact him? He asked if my family knew who he was. I said truthfully. I mentioned you worked in pharmaceutical PR and that you'd expressed interest in his endorsement. Her color drained slightly. And what did he say? He didn't seem surprised. The air thickened. Lana rose, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. We should let you rest. You need recovery time. Evan glanced between us, uncertain. I'll stop by tomorrow, Mom. Maybe we can talk more about the surgery. Before I could reply, my phone buzzed. Malcolm's name appeared on the screen. Checking in on my favorite patient. Dinner tomorrow evening? I know a place with an excellent cardiac menu. Samuel can collect you at 7. A smile tugged at my lips before I could stop it. Lana caught it, her eyes narrowing. I'm afraid I already have plans, I said calmly. Perhaps another time. From the window, I watched them drive away, their silhouettes locked in animated debate. Only when the car vanished did I reread the message and, heart fluttering, type my reply. I'd be delighted. 7 works perfectly. Later, I stood before my mirror, assessing the black dress that suddenly seemed too modest for whatever tomorrow might be. At 68, I had no idea if this was a date or a miracle I hadn't dared to imagine. Either way, I was ready. "Good evening, Mrs. Whitfield," Samuel greeted with his usual quiet professionalism. "Dr. Reyes is waiting in the car." "Thank you, Samuel." I gathered my wrap and small evening purse, locking the door behind me. The Tesla gleamed under the porch light, elegant and out of place in my modest neighborhood. As Samuel opened the rear door, I caught sight of Malcolm inside tailored navy suit, open collar, calm confidence. "Nora," he said warmly as I slid in beside him. "You look absolutely lovely." "Thank you," I murmured, suddenly aware of the years etched across my reflection in the window. My post-surgery wardrobe isn't exactly glamorous. He smiled, his dark eyes scanning me not critically, but appreciatively. "The black dress suits you. It brings out the silver in your hair. There's strength in that contrast." It wasn't flattery. It was observation precise, thoughtful, disarming. I felt myself blush. "How are you feeling?" he asked as Samuel pulled onto the quiet street. "Any pain? Shortness of breath?" "Just the usual fatigue," I said, "and maybe some lingering tension from yesterday's family visit." "Ah," he said softly. "I imagine my post caused quite a stir." "That's one way to put it," I said, studying him. "Was it deliberate, posting that photo?" He smiled slightly. "Let's just say I've learned that strategic honesty often reveals who's truly invested and who isn't." "You knew who Lana was, didn't you?" His gaze shifted to the skyline as we approached downtown Seattle. "Your daughter-in-law is well known in pharmaceutical circles," he admitted, "particularly for her persistence. Meridian's new drug line shows promise, but their trials are uneven." "Oh." "In other words, they need credibility," I said quietly. "Precisely. 17 emails to my office, 6 conference approaches, 2 invitations to speak, all declined." "You never mentioned it," I said. He looked at me, his tone softening. "I didn't want to color your view of her, or of me." The Tesla eased to a stop before an understated stone building along the waterfront. No sign, no crowd, just soft light spilling through tall windows. "The Miramar Club," Malcolm explained, stepping out and offering his arm. "Private, quiet, and the chef makes miracles with cardiac menus." Inside, the air hummed with low conversation and the scent of rosemary and citrus. The maitre d' greeted him by name. "To new beginnings," Malcolm said as he raised his glass of sparkling water, his gaze steady on mine. "And for the first time in years, I believe there might be one." "And to unexpected connections," Malcolm said, raising his glass. I touched mine to his, studying the distinguished face across from me. At what my daughter-in-law might call a seasoned 68, Malcolm Reyes carried his age with quiet assurance, the kind born from achievement and reflection rather than vanity. The faint lines around his eyes spoke of long nights and laughter in equal measure. His hands capable, precise, rested lightly on the table, steady as if the world still obeyed his rhythm. "May I ask something personal?" I ventured after our first course arrived. "Of course. Why did you respond to my text yesterday? You must have far more urgent cases than mine." He smiled slightly, thoughtful. "Do you know what drew me to cardiology, Nora?" "No," I admitted, curious. "The heart is miraculous, resilient, fragile, endlessly adaptive. It keeps going even when the world tries to break it. But I've learned that the strongest physical hearts often belong to those who feel least, while the most damaged hearts usually belong to those who love most." His gaze met mine. "You, Nora, are both vulnerable yet immeasurably strong." My throat tightened. "From our first meeting," he continued softly, "I knew you carried everyone else's weight quietly, without complaint. Yesterday, when I saw how your family responded, professional interest turned into something different." I'm not looking for pity," I said quickly. He looked genuinely surprised. "Pity?" His voice dropped. "What I feel for you is the opposite of pity." The intensity of his eyes made me glance toward the window, where Seattle's lights shimmered like distant constellations. After my husband Thomas died, I'd buried certain parts of myself, along with him: romance, vulnerability, the comfort of being truly seen. To feel them stir again now was terrifying and tender in equal measure. "Tell me about your son," I said, gently steering the conversation. The one whose engagement you attended in Zurich. Malcolm smiled, indulgent. Daniel. He designs sustainable housing in rural areas. Bright, stubborn, the kind of man who believes every wall can be rebuilt if the foundation is sound. I smiled faintly. He sounds whole. He asked about you, Malcolm said casually. Said I talk about you differently than my other patients. Differently how? I asked, my pulse quickening. Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. The warmth in his expression dimmed. A patient's having complications, he murmured. I'm sorry, Nora, I have to go. I understand, I said. He rose, hesitated, then bent to press a soft kiss to my cheek. I'll call you tomorrow, he whispered. And for the first time in years, I wanted tomorrow to come quickly. This evening meant a great deal to me, Malcolm said quietly, pausing before leaving the table. More than I can properly express with a patient in crisis waiting, but we'll finish our conversation soon. After he left, I sat motionless, my fingertips grazing the place on my cheek where he'd kissed me goodbye. A few minutes later, Samuel appeared with impeccable timing. Dr. Reyes asked me to make sure you enjoy dessert before I drive you home, Mrs. Whitfield. He specifically suggested the crème brûlée heart healthy, he said. I smiled, touched by the gesture. Even in absence, Malcolm had thought of everything. But as I cracked the caramel top of the dessert, my phone buzzed. Not his name, Lana's. Heard Dr. Reyes had to leave Miramar Club early. Didn't know you were dining there. We need to talk about your connection with him, crucial for Meridian's future. Breakfast tomorrow? My appetite vanished. How did she know where I was? And how did she know he'd left early? By the time Samuel dropped me home, the evening that had felt magical now shimmered with uneasy threads of manipulation woven into what I thought was simply human connection. The next morning, my doorbell rang. Lana stood there, holding a branded coffee carrier and a pastel bakery box, her version of a peace offering. Her Meridian Pharmaceuticals badge still hung around her neck, like an unspoken reminder of her true allegiance. Cranberry orange scones, she announced brightly. Your favorite. I took the cup she offered. Decaf, she added quickly, proud of the small detail remembered. Thank you, I said evenly, though I don't recall agreeing to breakfast. Her smile faltered but recovered. I thought we could start fresh. Family supporting family, right? The phrase hung like perfume, sweet, artificial, cloying. She sat across from me at the same nook where she and Evan once asked my advice about mortgages and dinner parties. So, you and Dr. Reyes? She began, skipping pretense entirely. I sipped my coffee, unhurried. How did you know I was at Miramar last night? Lana blinked, caught off guard. Seattle's medical circle is small. A colleague saw you there. Oh, and happened to know the moment he left? Her fingers tightened around her cup. It was mentioned. Interesting coincidence, I said softly. Your colleague must be very observant. She smiled tightly. Mom, I'm just trying to understand your relationship with Dr. Reyes for family reasons. Not Meridian reasons? I asked. The lie between us gleamed thin, bright, and breakable. Perhaps I'm not just any patient, I said, surprising even myself with the quiet steel in my tone. Lana's eyes lit up with opportunistic curiosity. Exactly. That's why I'm asking. Is it friendship, professional, or something more? The pause before more carried deliberate weight. I thought of Malcolm's gentle kiss on my cheek, the warmth in his eyes, moments that had felt private, human, not transactional. My relationship with Dr. Reyes is personal, I said evenly, not a networking opportunity. Frustration tightened her perfect smile. Mom, you don't understand what's at stake. Meridian's CardioSync program could redefine cardiac recovery. His endorsement could save lives, maybe even yours. Interesting, I murmured. Dr. Reyes mentioned CardioSync's trials were inconsistent. He said what it needs is research, not marketing. Lana froze. He discussed Meridian with you? Briefly, I replied. He seemed well informed, including about your repeated attempts to contact him. The color drained from her face. What exactly did he say? That you'd been persistent. 17 emails, 6 conference approaches. Her mouth fell open. You told him I worked for Meridian? He asked if my family knew who he was. I said calmly. I told him the truth. "You've jeopardized my reputation," she snapped. "Do you have any idea what this could do to me professionally? To us? Evan's firm handles Meridian's contracts. Our financial stability depends on it." "So that's what this is about," I said quietly. "Not my health. Not my recovery. You're worried I might hurt your bottom line." "That's not fair," she protested weakly. "Family and business are connected. I thought you understood that." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said, standing with effort. "I've always understood that my worth in this family ends where my usefulness does. I was good for babysitting, cooking, investing, paying bills, but never for simply being." "That's not true," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. "We appreciate everything you do," she added. "Everything I do," I echoed. "Not who I am." My phone chimed on the counter, Malcolm's name glowing across the screen. Lana's gaze followed it, calculation sharpening her features. "You should answer that," she said smoothly. "Maybe mention I was checking on you? A nice, caring daughter-in-law moment?" Her attempt at control was almost pitiful. I picked up the phone, turning away from her. "No, Lana," I said softly. "Not this time." Good morning, Nora. My apologies again for our interrupted evening. The patient's stable now. Would you consider accompanying me to the Seattle Symphony Gala this Saturday? Black tie, benefiting cardiac research. Samuel can assist with arrangements if you'd like. A formal event, in public. As Dr. Malcolm Reyes' companion. My newly reinforced heart fluttered in ways my cardiologist would probably frown upon. "Well?" Lana asked, feigning casual interest. "What does the good doctor want now?" I slipped my phone into my pocket. "I think our breakfast is over, Lana. Please give my love to Evan and the kids." Her expression hardened. "So that's how it's going to be? You'll prioritize this new relationship over your family?" "No," I said softly. "I'm finally prioritizing myself alongside my family. It's new for all of us, I suppose." She left soon after, bakery box untouched, coffee cooling on the table. For the first time in years, my kitchen felt peaceful, reclaimed. For decades, I'd measured my worth by what I could do for others. The idea of choosing something for myself, of letting something tender and uncertain unfold, was both terrifying and thrilling. I reread Malcolm's message and typed, "I'd be delighted to attend, though I should warn you my presence may attract Meridian's attention." His reply came almost instantly, "I'm counting on it. Some truths are best confronted publicly. Besides, I'm rather looking forward to seeing you in formal wear. You were radiant in black. I can only imagine what you'll choose for a gala." A blush crept up my neck, then another message. "Samuel will assist with suitable wardrobe options. Consider it part of your cardiac rehabilitation. Doctor's orders." I laughed aloud, but as the humor faded, the implications returned. The gala would make our connection visible not just to Seattle's medical elite, but to Lana, Meridian, and every gossiping executive eager to interpret what my presence beside him meant. I texted back, "I'll accept Samuel's help, but tell me, Malcolm, is this invitation personal or strategic?" His answer made my pulse skip. "Both. But the personal far outweighs the strategic. The gala simply offers a proper setting and an excuse to enjoy your company." I looked at my reflection in the kitchen window, flushed cheeks, bright eyes, alive again. Saturday night wouldn't just be a gala, it would be my debut. Instead of a few dresses, Samuel arrived with what looked like the contents of an entire boutique, rolling racks of evening gowns, a poised stylist named Margot, and a soft-spoken makeup artist who introduced herself simply as Inez. "Dr. Reyes was quite specific about ensuring you had options," Samuel said, his gentle British understatement making the extravagance feel somehow reasonable. Now, stepping out of a rejected navy gown, I let Margot guide me into the next selection, a deep emerald silk that shimmered subtly beneath the lamplight. "This," Margot pronounced with confidence, "is the one." I turned toward the mirror and barely recognized myself. The gown wasn't revealing no plunging neckline or daring slit, yet its perfect tailoring transformed my silver hair from something to conceal into something to celebrate. The soft draping fell gracefully over the scars I still carried beneath the fabric. "The color brings out your eyes," Inez observed, gathering her brushes. "We'll keep the look classic, defined but timeless. You have remarkable bone structure." "At my age," I said dryly, "that's a polite way to say I've lost facial fat." "Oh, oui." Inez smiled. "At your age, Mrs. Whitfield, It's a genetic gift most younger women would envy. Now please sit. As she worked with painterly precision, I thought how surreal this all was. 3 weeks ago, I'd been in a hospital bed wondering if I'd survive. Now, I was being prepared for a gala by the very people who'd once helped me stand again. May I ask something personal, Samuel? Of course. Has Dr. Reyes ever sent you to assist another patient like this? He hesitated just briefly. The doctor has always shown deep concern for his patient's comfort. That doesn't quite answer my question, I said gently. A pause. Then, softly, in 15 years of service, I've never seen him take such a personal interest, nor send a styling team with instructions to make someone feel, as he said, as extraordinary as she truly is. The words reached deeper than any compliment. When Inez turned my chair toward the mirror, I gasped. The woman staring back wasn't merely recovered, she was radiant. Margot approached with a velvet box. One last touch. Dr. Reyes selected these himself. Inside lay delicate teardrop emerald earrings, luminous against satin. I couldn't possibly... Merely on loan, Samuel interjected smoothly. Unless you find them pleasing. It was a perfect gesture, thoughtful, respectful, never presumptuous. At precisely 7, the doorbell rang. Shoulders back, Margot instructed softly. Chin up. You're not apologizing for existing, Mrs. Whitfield, you're arriving. After decades of making myself smaller to keep the peace, the very act of standing tall felt revolutionary. I descended my narrow staircase to find Malcolm waiting in my living room, resplendent in a perfectly tailored tuxedo that made him look as if he'd stepped out of a black and white film. When he turned and saw me, the expression that crossed his face, admiration edged with something more tender, made every fitting, every brushstroke of makeup worthwhile. Nora, he said softly, taking both my hands in his, you look breathtaking. The team you sent performed miracles, I said, flustered. He smiled. They didn't create beauty, Nora, they revealed it. His gaze lingered, warm enough to melt the quiet insecurity I'd worn for years. The emeralds suit you, he added. They bring out the green in your eyes. They're exquisite, I replied, though far too generous for a loan. We'll discuss that later, he said, offering his arm with old-world grace. Shall we? The Benaroya Hall glowed ahead of us, its glass facade alive with reflections of the Seattle skyline. A red carpet stretched toward the entrance, flanked by photographers capturing the arrivals of the city's elite. I hesitated. Malcolm, I'm not accustomed to this. Ah. He covered my hand with his. Just look at me, he murmured. We'll walk straight through. As Samuel opened the Tesla door, flashes erupted. Dr. Reyes, this way. Doctor, who's your guest tonight? Malcolm guided me forward, one steady hand at the small of my back. The calm authority in his stride anchored me. Just before the doors, he paused, turning us slightly for a deliberate photo. His arm slipped around my waist, his smile unmistakably personal. Forgive the theater, he whispered. Some messages are best delivered without words. Inside, the grand lobby shimmered under crystal chandeliers, filled with Seattle's business and medical elite. Malcolm moved easily among them, introducing me simply. This is Nora Whitfield, my guest this evening. Curiosity rippled through the room. I leaned closer. They're all wondering who I am. Let them, he said, amused. Curiosity keeps the mind sharp. Then his tone softened, and I rather enjoy watching them fail to label what's between us. Before I could respond, a voice cut through the hum. Dr. Reyes, what an unexpected pleasure. I turned. Lana, radiant in designer silk, stood arm in arm with Evan, whose tuxedo couldn't disguise his discomfort. Mrs. Whitfield, Lana said smoothly, emphasizing the title as her eyes flicked between us. What a delightful surprise. And just like that, the night's quiet magic collided with everything I thought I'd left behind. If you've felt every heartbeat of Nora's journey tonight, don't let it end here. Hit subscribe and join me for the next chapter, where love, loyalty, and late-life courage collide under Seattle's shimmering lights. Direct access to Dr. Malcolm Reyes, wrapped in a convenient family connection, it was everything Lana had been angling for. What she didn't know was that Malcolm had already anticipated this encounter, and the evening was about to dismantle everyone's expectations, including, perhaps, mine. Actually, Malcolm said smoothly, his hand resting at the small of my back with calm certainty, I'm not here with family. I'm here with my date. The word landed like a dropped glass. Date. Lana's professional smile flickered, her practiced composure straining. Your date? She echoed, glancing between us as if trying to balance a complicated equation. Yes, Malcolm replied, perfectly at ease. Nora and I have been getting to know each other these past few weeks. When I heard she was recovering from surgery, I thought a gala supporting cardiac research was a fitting evening out. Evan stared at me as if I'd just confessed to a secret life. Mom, you never mentioned you were dating Dr. Reyes. There are many things I don't mention, Evan, I said, surprising even myself with the steadiness in my tone. My personal life being one of them. Lana's PR instincts kicked in quickly. Well, this is wonderful, she said brightly. Family ties becoming personal ones. She turned to Malcolm, her voice honeyed. Dr. Reyes, I've been hoping to discuss Meridian's CardioSync project with you. Mrs. Whitfield, Malcolm interrupted with unfailing courtesy. I make it a point never to discuss business at charitable events. Lana blinked, recalibrating. Of course I understand, but as family now, we're not family, Mrs. Whitfield, he said pleasantly, though his words cut with surgical precision. I'm enjoying a personal relationship with Nora. That relationship doesn't extend to professional introductions. The bluntness left Lana speechless, something I'd rarely seen. Evan stepped in, the lawyer in him scrambling to smooth things over. We're just surprised, Dr. Reyes. My mother's been through a lot and we're concerned. Were you? Malcolm asked mildly. I was told you were unavailable to collect her from the airport post-surgery. Fortunately, I was. Evan flushed scarlet. Before he could answer, a striking woman in crimson approached. Malcolm, darling, the board's waiting for you. She turned to me, eyes warm. You must be Nora. I'm Catherine Winslow, Symphony Guild president and Malcolm's ex-wife. The word ex-wife hung in the air like a cymbal crash. Catherine smiled, squeezing my hand. He never brings dates. You must be quite special. Come, both of you, the presentation's starting. As she led us away, I caught Lana's stunned expression. Whatever game she thought she was playing had just changed completely. Malcolm leaned toward Catherine. Thank you for the rescue. She grinned. 30 years of marriage, darling. I can spot that look from across a ballroom. Besides, she added with a wink to me, I've been dying to meet the woman who finally coaxed him out of retirement, socially at least. Catherine squeezed my arm as we entered the ballroom. If anyone could lure him back into public life, she whispered conspiratorially, I'm not surprised it's someone with your poise and intelligence. Oh. The Benaroya Hall Grand Ballroom shimmered under chandeliers, round tables radiating around a stage adorned with the Seattle Symphony's crest. Catherine led us to the front, where place cards bore the names of donors and board members. Catherine always ensures I'm surrounded by people with generous checkbooks, Malcolm murmured as he held my chair. Strategically seated, I said, smoothing my emerald silk gown. Rather like our meeting with Lana and Evan. His eyes met mine, amusement flickering. You noticed that wasn't entirely accidental. I suspected as much when you texted about a direct confrontation in the proper setting, I said lightly. I didn't anticipate your ex-wife's involvement, though. He smiled faintly. Catherine and I have been divorced for 12 years, but we're still allies. She chairs several foundations I support and was intrigued when I mentioned someone who'd captured my interest. Oh, the admission sent an unexpected warmth through my chest. So tonight was choreographed? I asked. Not choreographed, he said gently. Anticipated. Lana has been trying to leverage your family connection for months. This evening allows me to clarify boundaries and enjoy the company of a woman I value deeply. His honesty steadied me. Malcolm didn't play games. He simply thought 3 moves ahead. And your declaration that I was your date? I asked, teasing. Strategic? His composure softened. Entirely sincere, though I should have cleared the terminology with you first. I'm not objecting, I replied, surprising myself with my boldness. His grin open, boyish, transformed his usually reserved face. Then let me make it official, he said quietly, his fingers finding mine beneath the tablecloth. Nora Whitfield, would you consider this our first date? Before I could respond, the lights dimmed and Catherine took the stage, welcoming donors to the cardiac research gala. I didn't withdraw my hand. His thumb traced gentle circles on my palm as the room fell into silence, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. Later, among Seattle's elite, I found myself part of effortless conversations about art, medicine, and the future. Malcolm drew me in often, his tone proud, as though reminding the room that I belonged there. In the ladies' lounge, as I refreshed my lipstick, Lana appeared beside me, her reflection cold and poised. "Quite the evening you're having," she said. "Dr. Reyes seems very attentive." "Yes," I replied calmly. She straightened, using that careful tone she reserved for delicate negotiations. "I hope you understand the position this puts us in professionally. My work with Meridian, your relationship with him, it complicates expectations." I turned to her fully. "Lana, let me be very clear. My personal life isn't a networking opportunity," I said evenly. "Dr. Reyes has already made his professional boundaries clear. I suggest you respect them." Lana blinked, clearly unaccustomed to resistance. "I'm just trying to navigate a delicate situation. Surely you can understand that." "Oh, what I understand," I replied, holding her gaze, "is that for years, my worth to this family has been measured by what I could give childcare, money, emotional support. And now that I've found something beyond those roles, your first concern is how to use it for your benefit." Color rose in her cheeks. "That's unfair. We care about you." "Do you?" I asked gently. "When was the last time you asked how I was healing? Whether I'm still in pain? Whether I'm lonely?" Her silence answered for her. "I'm not angry," I said softly. "I'm simply recognizing patterns I've allowed for too long. Whatever happens between Dr. Reyes and me is separate from this family. I hope you can respect that." As I turned to leave, her voice stopped me smaller, hesitant. "He really likes you, doesn't he? I just didn't think someone like him with someone older, less polished," I offered without malice. She flushed. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I said kindly. "And that's all right. Not everything valuable is obvious at first glance in medicine, business, or love." When I returned to our table, Malcolm was deep in conversation with the symphony conductor about cardiac rhythm and musical tempo. The sight made me smile. He looked up, and the warmth in his eyes reached me before his words. "Everything all right?" he asked quietly. "Better than all right," I said, and I meant it. The orchestra began Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet, its melody rising and falling like breath. I'd heard it before with Thomas, my late husband, but tonight the music felt like rebirth. As the final crescendo faded and applause filled the hall, Malcolm leaned close. "The reception continues in the atrium," he murmured. "There will be dancing. Would you join me? Or is that too much exertion?" "My cardiologist cleared me for light exercise," I said, smiling. "And I believe a waltz qualifies." His grin crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Then may I have this dance, Mrs. Whitfield?" The atrium gleamed under chandeliers as he led me to the floor, his hand steady at the small of my back. "It's been a while since I've done this," he confessed. "Medical conferences rarely include ballroom dancing." It's been even longer for me," I admitted softly. "Not since Thomas's retirement party, nearly 20 years ago. Then we'll be rusty together." Malcolm turned to face me, extending his hand in a formal gesture that felt timeless. "Shall we?" As his arm slipped around my waist and my hand found his shoulder, the years between who I'd been and who I was now seemed to dissolve. The orchestra struck a waltz, and somehow our bodies remembered what to do. He led with quiet assurance, not dominating but guiding, the same balance of confidence and attentiveness I'd seen in his work. "You're rather good at this," I murmured as he turned us gracefully through the swirl of couples, my emerald silk catching the light. "As are you," he replied, eyes glinting. "Another hidden talent to uncover." "At my age," I teased, "most talents are cataloged and archived." His arm tightened slightly. "I disagree. I think you've only begun rediscovering the parts of yourself you set aside. The rest is still waiting." The candor of his gaze made me look away, not out of discomfort, but to steady the rush of feeling rising in my chest. Around us, people watched, some with curiosity, others with envy. "We're attracting attention," I whispered. "Good," he said simply. "Let them see." "See what?" "That a woman with strength and grace can be the most captivating presence in any room," he replied. "And that she happens to be the most extraordinary person I've met in years." He didn't say it to flatter me, he said it as a fact. And that made it all the more dangerous to believe. Across the atrium, I spotted Evan and Lana. My son's confusion was palpable. Lana's expression, a storm of disbelief and calculation. "Your daughter-in-law seems unsettled," Malcolm observed dryly. "She's recalculating," I said, realizing genuine connection doesn't bend to corporate strategy. You understand the game well." "I've been watching for years," I said. "Just because I wasn't playing didn't mean I didn't learn the rules." The tempo slowed, his hold adjusted, still proper, but closer now, intimate in ways decorum couldn't conceal. "And now that you're playing?" he asked. "I'm realizing I enjoy it," I said, smiling. He chuckled, the warmth of it vibrating through me. "Maybe the secret isn't winning," he murmured, "but learning to love each move." "Oh." When the final note faded, applause swelled around us, but neither of us moved immediately. Then, with the unspoken ease of shared instinct, he took my hand and led me toward the terrace doors. "Some fresh air?" he said quietly. "The city's beautiful tonight." Outside, Seattle's skyline shimmered across the bay. The night air was crisp, tender. "You're trembling," Malcolm said, already slipping off his jacket and draping it gently around my shoulders. The jacket carried his scent, subtle cologne, fine wool, and something else I couldn't name but found inexplicably comforting. "Just a little chill," I lied. The truth was simpler. I was trembling from everything the night had stirred: the public acknowledgement, the confrontation with Lana, the feeling of being seen, desired, after years of quiet invisibility. Malcolm studied me with that same measured precision I'd once found intimidating in his exam room. "Perhaps we should call it a night. You're still recovering, and I wouldn't want to overtax you." "No," I said quickly, surprising myself. "I'm fine, truly." His expression softened into something warm, amused. Even so, a good physician knows when to end treatment before the patient experiences adverse effects. "We accomplished what we set out to do." "Which was," I prompted. "To establish certain truths," he said. "That you and I have a personal connection, independent of professional or familial influence. That your daughter-in-law's ambitions can't dictate your relationships. And most importantly," he added, his tone gentling, "that a distinguished widow and a workaholic surgeon can still find unexpected companionship in their so-called later years." The phrase so-called lingered in the air, his quiet rebellion against the notion that love had an expiration date. "If we leave now," I asked softly, "what happens next?" He smiled, the kind that reached his eyes. "Samuel drives you home. I walk you to your door. We say goodnight, knowing this was the beginning of something, not the conclusion. Tomorrow, I'll call to check on my favorite patient. Perhaps we plan dinner in a less formal setting, one conversation at a time." His steady, unhurried sincerity soothed the restlessness in me. This wasn't some reckless escape from loneliness. It was something deliberate, alive, real. "I'd like that," I whispered. As we turned back toward the ballroom, Evan appeared at the terrace doors, tension etched across his face. "Mom," he began, "Lana and I are leaving. We thought we'd drive you home." The offer was transparent, an attempt to reclaim control, to pull me back into the safe orbit of their expectations. Before I could respond, Malcolm's hand settled gently at the small of my back. "That's kind, Mr. Whitfield," he said evenly. "But unnecessary. Samuel is waiting to take Nora home." "She's my mother," Evan insisted. "Surely family takes precedence over whatever this is." That dismissive way of reducing Malcolm to an inconvenience ignited something fierce inside me. "Evan," I said calmly, "Dr. Reyes is my date this evening. He'll be taking me home. Please give my love to Lana." He stared at me, stunned. "Mom, you hardly know this man." "I'm 68 years old," I said gently. "I believe I can decide who escorts me home. And my heart," I added, "is functioning quite well, both literally and otherwise." As he retreated, I felt Malcolm's hand find mine. His voice was quiet, reverent. "Nora Whitfield," he murmured, "you are remarkable." And for the first time in years, I didn't deflect the compliment. I believed him. Under the starlit Seattle sky, wrapped in Malcolm's jacket, and my newfound confidence, I began to believe he might be right. I was, in fact, remarkable. Samuel drove in companionable silence as the soft rhythm of passing streetlights flickered through the Tesla's windows. Malcolm sat beside me, close but not quite touching, the warmth of his presence steady and grounding. The night's emotions, exhilaration, confrontation, hope left me both drained and alert, as though every cell in my body had reawakened. "Penny for your thoughts," Malcolm said gently as we turned onto my quiet street. "I'm not sure they're worth that much," I replied with a small smile. "Just processing. Any regrets?" His voice was calm, concerned. "Only that I didn't stand up to Evan sooner," I said after a pause. "Years sooner, maybe." He nodded. "Family patterns calcify with time. Breaking them requires courage." "So that's what I did tonight? Break patterns?" "Spectacularly," he said, smiling. "You reclaimed yourself in public, no less." As Samuel pulled into my driveway, a flicker of unease rippled through me. A light glowed in the living room, one I was certain had been off when I left. Malcolm noticed immediately. "Is something wrong?" "Someone's in my house," I said quietly. In an instant, his demeanor shifted, protective, controlled. "Samuel, wait here. If we're not out in 5 minutes, call security." He turned to me. "Do you know who might have a key?" "Evan does," I said. "But he was still at the gala." "Let me go first," Malcolm said firmly. But before he could move, the front door swung open. "Grandma?" My 17-year-old granddaughter Lila stood in the doorway, wide-eyed. "Oh my God, you look amazing. Is this the doctor? The one Dad and Mom are freaking out about." Relief and laughter tangled in my throat. "Lila, sweetheart, what are you doing here?" She shrugged, brushing hair from her face. "Mom texted that you were at some big fancy event with a famous doctor, and I wanted to see for myself." Her gaze flicked to Malcolm with unfiltered teenage bluntness. "Wow. Good choice, Grandma." Despite everything, I laughed outright. "Lila, this is Dr. Malcolm Reyes. Malcolm, my granddaughter, Lila." He extended his hand, his manner perfectly courteous. "A pleasure, Lila. Your grandmother speaks very highly of you." "So you two are like dating?" she asked as she led us inside, where textbooks and a half-eaten sandwich decorated my coffee table. "We're getting to know each other," I said. "That's code for dating," she said cheerfully. "Good. You deserve someone nice after being alone forever." Her candor stung slightly, though her heart was kind. "Does your mother know you're here?" I asked. "Nope," I libbered. "She and Dad are being weird. First, they ignore you for months, and now they're obsessed because you know someone important." Malcolm arched a brow. "Weird and controlling?" Lila grinned. "Exactly. I'm 17, not stupid." Her words struck me like truth wrapped in humor, sharp, fearless, and utterly freeing. "While I appreciate your concern, Lila," I said gently, "showing up unannounced isn't the answer. Your parents will be worried." "They're still at that gala thing," she countered. "They won't even notice I'm gone until they're home. I was gonna Uber back before then." Malcolm cleared his throat. "Perhaps Samuel could drive you home when you're ready. It's much safer than ride shares at this hour." Lila's eyes widened. "You have a driver? Like a real chauffeur?" "Samuel is far more than a driver," Malcolm said, amused. "But yes, he's outside and would be happy to get you home safely." "That's actually kind of cool," she admitted. Then her tone shifted, curious and serious all at once. "Before I go, can I ask you something, Dr. Reyes?" "Of course. Are you serious about my grandma?" "Because she's been lonely for, like, ever. She won't say it, but I know. And if you're just being nice because of her heart thing or because of Mom's weird business stuff, that'd really suck." The bluntness of her question, untouched by adult politeness, left me momentarily speechless. Malcolm, however, didn't waver. "I'm completely serious about your grandmother," he said simply. "Her medical condition brought us together, but our connection has nothing to do with her heart or your mother's ambitions." Lila studied him with the piercing gaze of a teenager reading truth like a test answer. "Okay," she said finally. "Just so you know, if you hurt her, I've got friends who can hack your files and give you a fake diagnosis. Something embarrassing." "Lila!" I gasped, half scandalized, half amused. Malcolm laughed softly. "A creative deterrent," he said. "But unnecessary, I promise." He stood, offering me a small, reassuring smile. "I'll ask Samuel to prep the car while Lila gets ready. Nora, may I have a word?" We stepped onto the porch, the night fragrant with blooming jasmine. "Your granddaughter is extraordinary," Malcolm said quietly. "Fierce, protective, and wise beyond her years. She's always been her own person, I replied, much to Lana's frustration. She clearly adores you, he said, moving closer, his hand finding mine. And she's right, you've carried too much solitude for too long. The gentleness in his voice undid me. Malcolm, about tonight. It was just the beginning, he interrupted softly. If you'll allow it to be. There was no pretense in his face now, only warmth and something dangerously close to hope. I'd like that, I whispered, but my family won't accept this easily. They don't have to accept it, he said, only to respect it and you. A realization struck me. You knew, didn't you, about Lana's pursuit, my family's neglect you orchestrated this evening. He didn't deny it. I recognized patterns, but no, Nora, I didn't use you. I gave you the chance to reclaim your place as a queen, not a pawn. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Lila stepped out, grinning. Your driver's awesome, Dr. Reyes. Malcolm smiled. I try to hire well. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel like someone being protected. I felt like someone being seen. Malcolm offered to have Samuel stop for ice cream on the way home, the surest way, apparently, to earn Lila's eternal affection. Samuel has impeccable taste in ice cream, Malcolm said, smiling. And in most other things. From the porch, I watched him escort my granddaughter to the waiting Tesla, his manner effortless and kind. He spoke to her not as a child, but as an equal, and she responded with the animated chatter reserved for people who actually listen. When he returned, he paused at the bottom of the steps, looking up at me in the soft glow of the porch light. I should go, he said, though reluctance lingered in his tone. You need rest after such an evening. Yes, I agreed softly, but I almost wish you wouldn't. He ascended a few steps, closing the distance between us until our eyes met. May I call you tomorrow? I'd like that. And perhaps dinner later this week? His smile deepened. Something quieter than tonight's spectacle. That sounds lovely, I said, and then his hand rose tentative but sure to brush my cheek. Nora Whitfield, he murmured. You have completely undone me. Then, with a gentleness that made my knees weak, he kissed me. Not hesitantly, not boldly, but with reverence, a promise in the form of touch. The moment was brief, yet it swept away 18 years of silence. As his car disappeared down my quiet street, I stood motionless, fingertips grazing my lips, feeling both the impossibility and inevitability of it all. At 68, with a heart rebuilt by science and softened by time, I was standing at the threshold of something rare and terrifyingly real. 3 weeks later, I sat in my garden under a golden Seattle morning, reading an article Malcolm had sent me. The quiet hum of birds and the scent of rosemary surrounded me when my phone chimed. Lana, family dinner tonight at 7. We need to discuss recent developments as a family. Corporate phrasing, veiled intent, and intervention. In those weeks, Malcolm and I had grown quietly close dinners tucked away in little restaurants by the bay, late conversations that stretched until midnight. He made me laugh again. He made me feel. I texted back, I'll be there. That evening, as I dressed in a deep teal pantsuit he once said brought out the color in my eyes, the woman in the mirror was no longer tentative. I was steady, certain. When I arrived, Lila opened the door before I could knock her grin wide, her voice bright. Grandma, she said, you look amazing. Thank you, sweetheart. I hugged Lila, noting the conspicuous absence of her younger brother. Where's Tyler? Sleep over at Jake's, she said, rolling her eyes. Apparently he's too young for serious family discussions, whatever that means. So, I'd been right. This was the intervention. Lana appeared in the doorway, her smile too polished to be sincere. Nora, you're right on time. We're having drinks on the patio. The formal use of my first name, not Mom, not Grandma, set the tone before I even stepped outside. Evan stood behind the bar, sleeves rolled up, trying too hard to look casual. Mom, he said, voice too light. You look good. Really good. Younger. Happiness suits me, I replied evenly. An awkward silence stretched as he handed me a glass of white wine. Lana gave him a quick look, a silent cue to begin. Mom, Evan started, we wanted to talk to you about recent changes. You mean Malcolm? He sighed, relieved that I'd said it. Yes, things seem to be moving fast. You barely know him. Actually, I said, calm but firm. I know him quite well. We've spent a great deal of time together lately. Oh, that's exactly what worries us, Lana interjected, her voice polished, but the strain showed. Right after your surgery, when you're still fragile, we just don't want him taking advantage. From the corner, Lila groaned audibly. Seriously, Mom, Grandma's not some confused old lady getting scammed. Dr. Reyes literally runs the cardiac unit at Swedish Medical. Lila, Lana said sharply, the adults are talking. No, I said, setting my glass down. She stays. She's shown more understanding of my recovery than either of you. Evan's jaw tightened. That's not fair. We've always had your best interests at heart. Have you? I asked quietly. When you couldn't drive me home from the hospital? When your visits were about Malcolm, not me? We've been busy. You've been busy for years, I said, my tone still soft but steady. While I babysat, wrote checks, and showed up whenever you called. Lana's veneer cracked. Nora, we're just concerned. He's powerful. I'm what? I asked. Too old to be desired? Too inconvenient to be loved? The question hung like smoke. Lila crossed to my side, slipping her hand into mine. Grandma deserves to be happy, she said fiercely. Maybe you two should try that sometime. Lana blinked, speechless. Adult relationships are complicated, I said, rising. But condescension doesn't make them easier. Sometimes, I said, choosing my words carefully, people have agendas that aren't immediately obvious. Like trying to use your mother-in-law's new boyfriend for business connections? Lila blurted, with all the tact of a 17-year-old truth grenade. Lila, Lana gasped. What? It's true. Lila crossed her arms. I heard you tell Dad that if Grandma would just leverage her relationship properly, it could open doors at Meridian that have been closed for months. Her air quotes were immaculate, an exact imitation of her mother's tone. Evan looked mortified. That was a private conversation. In the kitchen. During breakfast, Lila said flatly. Not exactly top secret. I felt an odd calm settle over me, like the steady beat of a repaired heart. Evan, Lana, I said softly. I understand your concerns, both personal and professional. But I need to be clear. My relationship with Malcolm isn't open for review, approval, or strategic planning. It's private, it's real, and it's brought me more peace than I've felt in years. Mum, Evan began. I'm not finished, I said gently. For decades, my life revolved around this family. Babysitting, paying bills, showing up whenever you called, never asking for anything in return. That pattern ends tonight. Lana's composure slipped. What exactly does that mean? It means I'm reclaiming my time, my choices, and my autonomy, I said, including my choice to see Malcolm without apology. And if we're concerned? Evan asked. You're entitled to your concern, I said evenly. You're not entitled to control me with it. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the hum of the patio heater. Then Evan's voice cracked. We just don't want to lose you, Mom. Oh, sweetheart, I said softly, taking his hand. You're not losing me. You're just meeting the version of me who finally knows her worth. The version that doesn't take orders, Lila said helpfully. Exactly. Something in that simple exchange seemed to reach Lana. Her expression softened. I never realized how lonely you must have been, she said quietly. I hid it well, I admitted. Being needed gave me purpose, but Malcolm reminded me I'm not just a background character in someone else's story. My phone chimed. Thinking of you this evening. Call when you're free. M. A smile tugged at my lips. Him? Evan asked. Yes, I said, meeting his eyes. And this time, I don't owe anyone an explanation. Lila grinned. So, are we eating? Or was this just a scheduled guilt session? Lana sighed, letting her flawless hostess mask slip for a rare second. There's lasagna in the oven, she said. We might as well eat before it turns to leather. We moved toward the kitchen, the air still thick with the residue of unspoken truths. Evan hung back and touched my arm gently. Mom, he said, voice low, are you happy? Really happy? It was the first time in years he'd asked me something without strategy behind it. I met his eyes. Yes, I said simply. For the first time since your father passed, I feel like I'm living again, seen for who I am, not just what I can give. His expression shifted confusion. hesitation, then something like acceptance. Then I guess I'd better get used to seeing Dr. Malcolm Reyes at Sunday dinners. That would be lovely, I replied, smiling. But not required. Malcolm and I are building something that exists on its own terms. It doesn't need to fit the family calendar. That's going to take some getting used to. For all of us, I said. Change usually does. Later that night, as Samuel drove me home through the quiet Seattle streets, I called Malcolm. His voice, warm and familiar, seemed to fill the car. "How was the family dinner?" he asked. "Enlightening," I said. "They staged what I believe the younger generation calls an intervention." He laughed softly, that deep, grounding sound that always steadied me. "And how did that go for them?" "Not as planned," I admitted, "but I think we reached a new beginning or the fragile outline of one." "I'm proud of you, Nora," he said. "Standing your ground after so many years of keeping the peace couldn't have been easy." It was easier than I expected," I said quietly, watching the city lights blur past the window. Once I understood my own worth, everything else fell into place. "Your worth," he said, "was never in question, at least not to me." As the car turned onto my street, I noticed a glow across my porch, soft golden light, not from the motion sensor but from candles. Dozens of them. "Malcolm," I said into the phone, half laughing, half breathless, "are you at my house?" "I might have arranged a little surprise," he admitted. "Consider it a celebration of courage, of healing, of the woman who decided to start living again." When I stepped onto the candlelit porch and he took my hands, I realized this wasn't a new chapter. It was a whole new story, one I was finally writing for myself. When I look back on the last few months, I see a woman who almost forgot her own worth and then chose to reclaim it. If my story resonates with you, tell me in the comments what moment in your life reminded you that it's never too late to start again. Your words remind women like me that courage isn't age-bound, it's choice-bound. And if you're standing where I once stood quiet, overlooked, waiting, take this as your sign. Stop waiting, speak up, step forward, love again. Support someone who's learning to live out loud. We rise together.